Hey there, you have tuned into That Girl Jenna Kurosawa. We're doing a new series called The Wires, which is pretty much stands for Week in Review expanded series. So we'll be going everything that we talk over, a quick overview of what's been going on in the past week through our Mondays, well-being, business tech talks Wednesdays, and then the social causes Fridays discussions. So just wanted to introduce the new series. I'm going to be posting this on YouTube and also more places. So stay tuned. I appreciate any person who has subscribed, any person who's watched any of my videos, either here on YouTube, TikTok, if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter. I appreciate that. So I'm going to just jump straight into this. That's the intro for the new series. And I'm also doing my podcast on Anchor FM right now. So just wanted to give a quick intro and let you know what's going on. It's called The Wires, Weekend Review Expanded Saturday Series, going over our Monday well-being discussions, business tech talks, and Friday social causes. So stay tuned. And I will go ahead and just show you some of the books that we've gone through, my YouTube people. Right here. So this is called Prayer, Faith, and Healing, Cure Your Body, Heal Your Mind, and Restore Your Soul. Been going through that for the last couple of months. And then on Fridays, we do our Forces of Habit, Drugs in the Making of the Modern World, and this is by David T. Cortright. And then let me get the author for the other one. Kenneth Winston Kane and Brian Paul Kaufman are the authors for this book series. And then on Wednesdays were our business and tech talks, crucial conversations, tools for talking one stakes for heart. So wanted to share those with you really fast. Put this quick little note in here for you guys, and we will continue going through. So at any point in time you're consuming this content, I can only hope that you're doing well. And I always apologize if I waste your time. Hopefully I don't, but let's just jump straight into it right now. Okay, so for segment one, I'm going to go over the books and what we talked about for this past chapter. So the first one was Prayers, Faith, and Healing, and we talked about this past week. The date was, I posted the podcast and blog for June 6th, 2022, Prayer, Faith, and Healing, and we talked about fasting and prayer, we discussed the fervent prayer, and we discussed prayers of healing. So fasting is intentionally abstaining from food or water or something in order to align you to refocus and regroup your thoughts. Spiritual healing, a way of humility, and then the fervent prayer. If you want to, get more information, the podcast and the blogs available in the link in descriptions. I'll add those, and it's pretty much the urgent prayer, the cry of the heart. You constantly are you pleading out to God. It doesn't have to be a long prayer. It could be very, very short, but impactful, and pleading out your entire heart, soul to God for something, a prayer of petition, need. And then the last section was prayers of healings, and where is our mind, our thoughts being directed towards, showing you examples of what Jesus did and how we can learn from him. And then after that, we went into Wednesday's business tech talks, crucial conversations. Really good discussion on that. I had to break it up into two parts. We're going through chapter 6, and that was first posted on the 8th of June 2022. And again, it's how to gain control when your emotions are crazy. How do you refocus, redirect your thoughts when life is stressful, when you're angry, your emotions are high. And then it talks about skills for mastering our story. And one of the techniques that they discuss is realizing that when you are giving information and you have a reaction, there is a little a moment in between when you tell yourself something and you are trying to bring meaning or understanding to something that you don't understand. So we tend to tell ourselves stories, and sometimes they're not accurate or true, and that is what can throw our emotions out of whack and make it difficult for us to focus and talk. So they have skills and tools, and also how to analyze your story, to backtrack, step out of the conversation, and focus on what you need to be focusing on. So if you want more information, please check out those links for this Wednesday Business Tech Talks, Crucial Conversations. Again, here's how it looks. Totally recommend you get a copy of it. The authors for these are Carrie Patterson, Joseph Rennie, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzler. So I have a TikTok series for these as well. And then Friday social causes, super fun. I've been enjoying this book. It's so detailed. I don't know if you can see all the underlinings. I do short videos on TikTok. They're only 3 minutes long, so they're quick overviews of each talking point. And I'd like to go into more details, so hopefully soon I'll be able to do longer discussions about these, because the reasons why I put these on this book for Friday for Social Causes is literally trying to understand in modern society how we respond to people who utilize controlled substances, whether or not you're in favor or opposed against it. It's just one of those things that's been with us for the length of all mankind. We've always had some type of vice, whether it's tobacco, sugar, caffeine, opium, cannabis, liquor, wine. There's something out there that we've been imbibing in for duration of all mankind. So this book kind of goes over the history of it, how these controlled substances and drugs were distributed, how they were prohibited, what the consequences were for utilizing these things, and how they still continue to grow and expand. So this last week we really got into the big three, which is tobacco, caffeine, and sugar. And people don't really often consider caffeine or sugar a drug, but it does create stimulating effects in the body. And there's different sources that they go through to explain why these considered sugar. And for the last section, they brought up the introduction of Coca-Cola and the high caffeine content in Coca-Cola, the origins of the cola beans. They made it into a French wine, essentially, so it was a soft drink. It was designed, then they removed the wine during Prohibition, and it became a temperance drink, but there was still like the traces of cocaine, and they replaced that with crystalline, which is pretty much a combination of the refuse leaves, all the caffeine turned into like a powder. So they added that to the Coca-Cola. So it is Coca-Cola brand is an American staple. It is from America originally. That brand that we're familiar with, it is the real deal. And they actually had to go to court in 1911 and had to reduce the caffeine content because it was showing to have negative effects on children and addictive properties and components. So this is talking about caffeine and the origins of Coca-Cola. So the reason why I brought that one up is because later on in this particular podcast I will be talking about this movie I watched recently called The Miracle, or Cokeville Miracle, and it is based off of a true story. It took place in the 80s. So I just wanted to give you guys like a little bit of an intro to that. But yeah, again, this past week we've gone through prayer, faith, and healing, crucial conversations, and then forces of habit. If you want more information, please follow the links. There's going to be more information. There's a lot of resources out there. So thank you so much for listening for the first introduction, and let me get into the next one. This one's going to be really fun. So let me put my little side note in there. I don't know if any of you guys have seen or if you've heard, I should say, of Paul Harvey. I'm going to be talking about not Steve Harvey, but Paul Harvey. Okay, so type that in really fast, and then we're going to get into this very powerful movie and what actually really happened in it. So looking forward to it. Okay, so I was asked, my mom asked me if I wanted to watch a movie with her, and she told me it was about a serial killer and that there was a lot of killing. And I was like, that sounds good to me. I like movies like that. So I'm sitting here watching this movie with her because her friend referred it to her, and she told me it was about a serial killer. So I told her, and I'm like, okay, cool, let's check it out. As I'm watching the movie, because I have no idea what's it about, and I'm not going to spoil it for everyone, but I would highly encourage, that's why we're having this discussion, I would encourage you to seriously watch this movie. It's free on YouTube right now. Cokeville Miracle took place in 1986. Interestingly enough, I was born in 1987, but yeah, so this happened in an elementary school. A gentleman and his wife, Doris, they, for whatever reason, felt it some type of call, or they wanted to make history and some kind of historical impact. Even it's quoted that the wife, Doris, she was quoted telling the children that you guys are going to be making history. You're going to be telling your children and your grandchildren about this incident, and that it's all going to be really exciting. As long as they get the ransom money, everyone's going to be fine. And so I find that the reason why I find that so interesting is there's this film called Meet the Robinsons, and there is an evil character, and her name is Doris, and it's pretty much that movie. Spoiler alert. So if you don't want to listen to the spoiler alert for Meet the Robinsons, you can fast forward it right now. So, spoiler alert. Okay, so Meet the Robinsons, what happens is Doris is evil. She pretty much thinks humans are inferior, and she creates a scenario where everyone is living in a post-apocalyptic world where robots have taken over. So that's just one part of the movie. Very small detail. There's so many other plot twists in that movie, but that's just one of them, that Doris is actually evil. And so I compare her character to the Doris, a real life person, a real woman, in this film adaptation of Cokeville Miracle. And she's telling these children, you're going to be making history, you're going to be telling your grandkids about it. Sure enough, that was very, very true and accurate. So essentially what happened was the bomb went off, and the vast majority of people who were affected by this were somehow divinely protected. So I'm not going to go into any more details. I recommend you watch it for sure to get all the full, the way that they did it was really nice. You get the full impact and magnitude of what took place while everything else is happening in the film. Essentially, though, what I will spoil for you guys is the power of prayer, and what these children, they made the conscious choice, a lot of them, to just turn to prayer. And that moves me, because at the very end they make a special shout out and dedication to any person, any parent or adult who has encouraged a child to pray. That's one of the only things you can do. So the reason why that means so much to me is because I've been going through this book series, Prayer, Faith, and Healing, and it's literally cure your body, heal your mind, and restore your soul through the power of prayer. So if you watch this movie, you'll understand more of why I'm so emphatic about this. And we don't really hear about miracles happening. There was a tragedy that took place in Texas, a school shooting, and we have to sometimes sit there and scratch our heads and wonder, why did these children not make it out and these other children over here did? What's the difference? We could spend hours discussing this, and I'll touch on a couple of highlights. One is the media right now is not always the most reliable source of information. There's so many unanswered questions and so many suspicious things that happened around that shooting, and it's a tragedy, and I'm not trying to make light of anything. Innocent lives were lost, and that's never easy. In the same breath, we have to realize, though, that there are different forces. There's evil forces and there's godly forces, and we'll never get the full understanding on this side of life, but we know that miracles happen. They still happen across the world. For whatever reason, this particular town, literally called Cokeville, I watched this movie right when I was doing my intro, when I was reading up on forces of habit, learning about Coca-Cola, the caffeine industry, sugar industry. It's like I was reading this book, and then my mom's like, hey, you want to watch this movie called Cokeville? And this is, again, right after the whole incident that happened in Texas. So I'm like, what is the connection between Coca-Cola, these innocent children, and these, what's going on, God? Like, is there something going on? And it just reminded me of another book I read by Paul Harvey, and he has this series called The Rest of the Story. So he'll start out with something, gives you a little bit of information, and you're kind of pulled in, you're trying to figure out what's going on, and then there's this huge plot twist that just gives you the chills, or just totally whoa, how did that happen? So he was a great orator, and he told stories, and great gentleman. So let me share one of them with you. I read, and essentially the gist is, again, supposedly real stories. This is what he documents, real stories, but I believe it happened to time in the late 60s or 70s. A church did their choir practice in the attic at the same exact time every single week. And so he goes through and he explains what happened to each person that day. One person was they slept in and they missed Bible, or they missed the lessons, or they were late. Another person got caught in traffic, or someone they got into an argument with their family. For whatever reason, every single person in this particular church choir missed choir practice. For whatever reason, every person was not there. But that same day, there was a gas leak in the attic, in the basement, and there was an explosion downstairs. but no one was hurt because no one was there. For whatever reason, everyone missed that scheduled appointment. So sometimes we could be really mad about setbacks or frustrations, like roadblocks or what have you. But sometimes we should be very grateful for things that didn't happen. God sees the rest of the story, and that incident was documented happening like inexplicable. No one knows why everyone was late that day or missed choir practice. So when we hear stories like this, the miracle at Cokeville Elementary School is one of those things where it's like, what's really, you can't, I don't know. There's a lot more going on than we can possibly ever fully understand. So this is one of the reasons what motivates me, propels me to continue coming out here and discussing these huge talking points with you guys. One of them being, yes, the power of prayer, spiritualism. Another being like literally how to communicate and talk with one another. With people who you don't understand, with people you don't like, people you don't respect. Interpersonal communication is, like the title is, crucial conversations, and I want to keep talking about how to have more effective conversations. And lastly, let's talk a little bit about keeping our kids safe, and that's from guns, that's from bombs, it's from controlled substances. Let's have that discussion. So give me a moment right now while I go ahead and put that in there. Just talking a little bit again, reiterating, yes, the Cokeville miracle. I cannot understand that. It's amazing. Definitely check it out. I was so moved to tears. That's one of my biggest things is pray. If you can't do anything else, I tell my young children, children from Bible school, and all those different things, just pray. Jesus hears you, God hears you. The Father God, He does hear you. He does care, and He is paying attention. So how can we pretty much put all this together, okay? So how is it random Cokeville, never heard of this town before in the 80s, with what's going on in Texas, with what's going on in the country, with the gun violence, the violence in general, and just simply the lack of love and trust and the ability to talk and communicate with one another. So thanks be to God that He put all these random loose things together. It's one of the reasons why I did call this new series WIRES, WIRES, which stands for Week in Review Expanded Show. Like, everything may seem unrelated, but it somehow gets strung together, it gets wired together. So let's talk about Coke. Alright, so forces of habit, drugs and the making of the modern world. I love discussing these things because what's actually happening. So this book talks a lot about slave exploitation, slave labor for people to get their sugar, tobacco, their chocolate, their distilled drinks, what have you. Like, their wars started, people died literally harvesting our controlled substances. Sugarcane industry, this book will go through it and explain to you how we exploited people. Okay, so that's one layer of this. Second layer, though, are children. One of the reasons why this doctor is interesting, his name is Harvey as well, because if we've got, everyone knows who Steve Harvey is, and then there's, okay, hold on, I'm getting my Harveys mixed up now. Now I have to do a little bit of an edit. We've got Paul Harvey. Let me look this up because I'm going to confuse myself. I think the person who wrote, see, look here, I'm going to have to do live right now. Reiterate. Okay, here we go. Make sure I'm getting my people right, because there's just so many of them. Oh my god, this is not working. I just want to make sure I'm giving you guys the right information, so bear with me because I'm making a mistake. There's Paul Harvey, and I'm glad that I caught myself. Okay, so Paul Harvey is the guy who did the rest of the series. Paul Harvey Arant was an American radio broadcaster. Okay, so he's the one that I was talking about that did the rest of the series, the rest of the story series about the church miracle. And then we know who Steve Harvey is. He's a comedian. All right, so Paul Harvey, Steve Harvey, and then there's another gentleman named Dr. Harvey Wiley, and he took Coca-Cola to court in 1911, declaring caffeine to be a dangerous and unlabeled additive in a product marketed and sold to children. So after lengthy litigation, the company reduced the caffeine content by half. So, again, we're talking about Cokeville, protecting our children. What does this all have to do? How is this all connected? Okay, so we know about the crisis that's going on in the country, the opioid crisis, people overdosing, but they don't really consider sugar a drug, a lot of people, unless you've got some type of diabetes issues or I don't know. Most people, they don't really think about sugar as a problem until, like, I guess it comes time for weight loss or for clearing up your acne or, you know, different issues like that. But the situation that we're seeing is the weight issues with young children, the addiction to soda and sugary drinks in general, Kool-Aid, fruit punch, all of the juices has a lot of sugar. Pretty much they put it in for preservatives, for flavoring, and that's one of the things where it's like we need to really be cautious about what we're giving our children, because childhood obesity and childhood diabetes has risen exponentially in the country, and back in the 80s and prior to that, we didn't see much of these cases of serious health risks in our youth. And I'm not sitting here saying don't drink Coca-Cola. That's not at all. I'm not reading these books here and saying like don't do drugs, because a lot of these things were actually initially medicinal purposes. Coca-Cola was designed to be a temperance drink to get people off other things, but we also have to consider what these people were doing in the 1900s and 1800s. They were working. They didn't have the modern appliances that we have, at least not all of them. They didn't have the internet, they didn't have computers, tablets, smartphones, GPS. They did a lot more manual physical labor. They walked, and there was a lot of wars going on, a lot of poverty, there's depressions. These people were a lot more, not necessarily intentional, but because of the food choices, they didn't have processed foods, they didn't have preservatives, filled with salt and questionable chemicals. It was genuinely mostly kosher food, organic, whatever that they had available. It wasn't filled with additives and synthetic ingredients. It was just genuine food, a lot more physical labor, a lot more physical activity, and outdoors. So children, if they were given a soda or a Coke or whatever, I mean, there's a history of, obviously we talked about the cocaine use and people over-prescribing certain things. We talked about, we're going to get into it, but they used to prescribe opium for whatever reason. They were giving kids things left and right that was dangerous. So the United States already has an extensive history of dabbling in the controlled substances and giving them to our children, or parents. If you are a smoker and your kids wanted to smoke at 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, you had children smoking alongside their parents. That wasn't a big deal. They didn't filter their water. They just lived their life. So now here we are, modern day. We have all the science. The doctors are coming back and saying the children are morbidly obese. We're having younger and younger kids experiencing childhood diabetes, which is something that only adults experienced, and the shorter life expectancies. And I haven't even touched on school violence, bullying, cyberbullying, the effects of social media and depression, suicide rates in our young children, getting pulled into promiscuous lifestyles because they're introduced to things from social media, things that they're watching on the television, kids picking up diets, self-harm tendencies like cutting, they're learning from the media, the fast food nation, you name it. So as we talk about school violence, what happened in Texas and the mistakes that were made, and we go through the history of controlled substances and what's happened to our children, and then we discuss what happens in Cokeville. All the children survived, and that was a bomb. And the question is, it's why does God protect some people or not? Why are some people healthy or they can respond better. Because I've met a couple of gentlemen who can do heroin, who can do cocaine, who can drink all day, and they're perfectly fine. In the beginning of this book, there's a guy, his name is Anthony Colombo, and he's cited, it says, on July 13th, 1926, Anthony Colombo, a man of many habits, all of them bad. He checked into the Philadelphia hospital, and he admitted that he consumed every single day of his life. He smoked a 1/4 ounce of opium, puffed 80 cigarettes, drank 2 cups of coffee or tea, and down a quart of whiskey. He got drunk every single day. There are people out there who, taking certain of these drugs, or we call them drugs, or medicinal things, that helps them function. That helps them with pain, and they can still go to their job and cope and function. And there are other people who can't, they'll OD, they'll die, or they just want to stay on drugs. They can't work, they can't do anything. So the question is it the government's job to tell you what you can and can't take? How much does the government have in you as a parent being able to raise your child and determine what you can give them? Because there's no law saying you can't give your kids soda. But there was a doctor back in the early 1900s, 1911, Harvey Wiley, who did take Coca-Cola to court because he felt that it was a dangerous detriment to the well-being. And then also the cocaine incident and the spike in drugs. So it's just one of those things where when you talk about America and what it stands for, Coca-Cola for sure is an American, and it's the real deal, and it was designed to keep you sustained. It is what it is. It's a fact. Whether or not, we're not going to go into the details of how many people died, but we need to talk about, like, now, current modern day, how many people are still dying due to the vices that they allowingly and willingly choose to imbibe in. This is the thing that we really need to look at as a parent. We're so concerned about our kids not getting shot up out of school. The question now is, are we concerned about their mental health, their physical health, spiritual well-being, their ability to communicate with other people and handle problems? So let me do a quick conclusion to this and wrap it up and see, hopefully, what we can do better and differently. So let me just get ready to kind of wrap it up, because it does seem like there's a lot of loose ends, but there's a reason for it. There is a reason for it. Like, we really need to be addressing some of these issues a little bit more in detail and really thinking, again, how is this related? Because we've had children dying in Texas and children not dying in different places. What's the difference? So let me go ahead and kind of jump into that right now. Okay, so miracles still happen. We don't quite understand why miracles still happen and why they take place, but referring back to the book that I've been going through this series, Prayer, Faith, and Healing, these doctors admit that there's no magic formula for why a person experienced healing. They have no explanation as to what happened in the Cokeville miracle. The only thing that I can make an observation of, and I'm not trying to say that this didn't happen or call anyone out for anything, but it's just an observation. Again, why I'm kind of concerned about the media bias and how things are a little bit unreliable, unpredictable, but essentially, with the footage and stuff that took place, I'm sure that there were people who prayed. I'm sure people were praying around the world during the entire incident, but that wasn't really shown or expressed in the media at all. I didn't hear anyone about, like, this is a time for prayer, we see people praying. I didn't hear anything about prayer at all during this most recent shooting. I also need to add that there were children who were killed every single day, and this is not trying to belittle or downplay what happened. I'm just trying to help people think and put things in perspective. We want to get angry at God and shake our fists and like, that's not fair, and I thought God, he always answers every prayer, and he hears every prayer, and he heals everyone that prays. For whatever reason, that's not always the case. There is a million variables between each person and God. God knows that person. He knows the full story. He knows what they're capable of doing. He knows what they've done. He knows what they've thought. We may look at someone and say, oh, he's like the best perfect Christian, and God knows that person's heart and their mind, so we don't know why happy to not continue that person on, or, you know, we have to admit that there's evil in the world, that there's evil forces. This could be a wake-up call, you know, for all of us here, like, you know, what was different? You know, we talk about September 11th and how people found unity. Today's June 11th. Let's hope we can find unity today, despite all of this. Another thing that we want to focus on is, we talk about gun violence, but the incident in Cokeville actually involved a bomb. So when we talk about people being evil and the evils of the world, it's not necessarily that of a gun. It could be a controlled substance that wasn't noticed. A parent may not have realized that their child was going through something. And so my last emphasis is, we really need to be having better conversations, crucial conversations, tools for talking when stakes are high, learning how to effectively communicate with our children, talking to them about preventative health. You know, like, again, you can drink a Coke. Coke, to me, I actually love Coca-Cola. Like, I am a huge Coca-Cola supporter. I'm not a person who drinks it every single day, all day, every day. But to me, Coca-Cola, and any vice, not any vice, but for some people, vices, it is a sign of good work, a good job. Like, hey, you deserve a Coke, you worked for it. You know, you work really, really hard. It's a treat. It's something that you should reward yourself with. And I appreciate that the successor of the original Coca-Cola factory, he made sure that the U.S. troops got them at a really affordable rate, a nickel Coke. You know, like, he was serious about that. It's a treat, it's a dessert, it's a reward. And so I'm not saying ban soda, ban all drugs. This isn't what this is about. This is about, we can use prayer, meditation, getting ourselves in a better state of mind, getting ourselves healthier, getting ourselves in tune with what's really important, prioritizing our health, our community, our family. In the movie Cokeville Miracle, they had people praying. The children were like, say a prayer, pass it along. They came together. There was a community, and that's what we need to see more of. And then we need to learn how to talk effectively, crucial conversations. Please follow me for this series. And then lastly, forces of habit, drugs in the making of the modern world. We need to know our history. We need to know why people were using these things, what the consequences were, and the detrimental effects it had on society. There was a reason why people were threatened with death. They did kill you, they did mutilate you, they did flog you in certain countries for smoking, for not being able to quit a habit. There were severe consequences. And the consequences that we're seeing today, though, is our children are stressed out, they're afraid, they're depressed, they're expecting death around every corner. The health is, I'm talking about diabetes, sugar, anything that comes along with it. There's a lot, but that's for a different day. And then also, this is the opportunity when we really need to teach our children the value of having, what do you call it, contentment. They should be aware of the dangers of the world, but as a parent, we need to be able to give them, hey, you know what, like, positive as well. With a Christian, we know that this is not our only life here. We have a promise of a perfect body and a reunion with Christ in heaven. But also, we shouldn't fear any man. We shouldn't live our lives walking around in fear. And this is a really, really hard one, even for myself, and also to convey it and relate to other people. Part of your ability to survive anything is the willpower, already having a positive mindset, giving the children good mental survival tools, how to have the mental endurance to deal with bullying, dealing with fear and attack and fear of life. We constantly need to be in communication with our loved ones, praying for one another, calling them up, talking to them, touching base. We don't need to wait for a tragedy for these things to start happening and to instill this peace of mind in our children. So I appreciate for any person out there who's endured some hardships in life, who's been able to learn from it and share their findings, and to help put in preventative plans within the school systems, within our local communities, talking. This is a great opportunity for preventative tactics. We need to talk to our local lawmakers, the local law enforcement, already have a plan of action in place. Talk to the kids. We don't want to see them scared and afraid, but we also need to give them realistic expectations. In foreign countries that are going through wars, for them, life and death has already been pretty much played out, like, tomorrow is not promised. And they're having a whole different state of mind, where we have many kids here in the West who are very, very comfortable, who live very, very safe and soft lives. They don't, have anything to worry about. They've got the microwave, they've got instant food, they've got instant, gratification, TV devices, what have you. They've got them at their fingertips, and some of them are not prepared for the harsh reality of the world. So that's another thing that needs to be addressed, is actually talking to them, preparing them for some of the hardships, but also giving them hope, giving them a peace of mind, giving them encouragement, and knowing that, hey, you know what, that there is a godly Father who loves his creation, that he's there for us, that miracles do happen. We don't understand why everything happens the way it happens, but there is a good God. There is also evil people out there. And we need, again, get back to the basics. Family, time, prayer, learning better crucial conversation skills, tactics, and learning their history. So with that, I will go ahead and leave you. I hope you guys have taken something from this. I really do. I really do. So, let me go ahead and just put that little side note in there. Tools, resources. So, but yes, as always though, I do appreciate, again, any person who's tuned in. I apologize though if I've wasted your time, and at any point in time you're consuming this content, I can only hope you're doing well. I'll have the podcast overview on my blog, on Blogspot, as well as the website yourpresentreality.com. The podcast audio is available on Anchor FM. So I've been your host, that girl, Jenna Kirisoa. New series called Wires, Week in Review, expanded show, going through what we talked about this past week, tying it all together, giving you hopefully more information, again, expanding what we've talked about this past week with useful, practical tools. Again, thank you in advance for your time, and yes, God's peace as always. I can only hope you're doing well. Thank you.